And there we go. So, Mike, are we going to start with you?
Sure. So my name is Mike Lavorato, and I'm just actually sharing the room right now. Can you guys hear me okay? Okay, you guys can hear me. Good. So I'm Mike Lavorato. I do aquaponics. I run an aquaponics business in southern Alberta. Actually, all throughout Alberta. We have a system even in Edmonton now. We have 46 locations in schools. And we're actually building systems in senior homes, libraries. We have 2 systems at universities, University of Lethbridge and the University of Alberta. And I build systems that help people learn and help people understand the basics of aquaponics and get that introduction to the growing method and facilitate that. So it's a system that I designed, and we've been doing for about 4 years now, putting in public places for a growing method that I found was quite. It's amazing, but it was very messy, and we've tried to make it as fun and easy and as organized as possible. We keep going with this. We have manuals, and we're doing video manuals and that kind of thing. So, is that kind of what you guys were looking for? Was that a lot?
Yeah. So I'm going to also say, are you able to share your screen, or would you like Dustin to share the screen and then he could?
Dustin, when we talked, I had the basics of aquaponics, or do you want to do that?
Do you know what? Go ahead and do your presentation as kind of you intended. Okay. A lot of the what is part, like I can whatever you cover, I can sort of skim through quicker on mine and focus on some of the background and things that I've worked on.
Okay, so I am not. I just got to figure out here share screen. Okay. So I'm not a huge Zoom expert. Let me figure out how to.
Yeah, once you hit share screen, it should give you a bunch of options. Yeah, there you go.
Got it. Do you guys see it now?
Yeah. We see your desktop. Yep.
Okay, so there's Aquaponics World. That's our little business. It was a nonprofit, and then we have both of them now, the private business and the nonprofit. So here is my 17 slides. And we will start here. Let me try to blow this up for you guys to go full screen. Oh, where are we full screen?
Go view at the very top.
Enter full screen.
There you go.
There we go. Thank you, Dustin.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So here we go, and this was the name of our one of the grants we got, Youth Changing the Course, YCC. Some of the schools buy these privately with their own money. Some of them we write grants. Grants are unpredictable, so you guys know all that world. And we build these little microsystems. And here's our program. The whole goal of my wife and I was to introduce people to aquaponics, but then eventually to build greenhouses at schools. We kind of see it as the natural evolution of these small systems. We really want greenhouse growing here in southern Alberta in schools to be what automotive classes are like. That's the general idea. It's an experiment, and who knows where it goes, but here's what we've done so far. So here's our society, the Fort Mcleod Community Aquaponic Greenhouse Society. We are a nonprofit organization promoting aquaponics in southern Alberta. So we go into schools, and we can usually introduce them to the benefits of having an aquaponics system in schools, and that one of the major benefits is learning how to run systems, but also just healthy eating, healthy produce. My wife is doing her PhD in public health with a focus on gut fauna and links to mental health. And for the longest time, we thought mental health issues were the mind, and then usually what we see is a negative reaction to the guts, anxiety, depression, anger. They all cause issues with our guts. But now we're starting to find out, or at least what she's studying, is that your guts, your gut biome, your intestines, those kind of things, your stomach, actually can have a huge impact on your mental health. So it runs that way. So just healthy eating, promoting that in schools. So we received the Eco Action Grant. This was a while ago. And we built in this particular project, we built 11 systems in schools. Well, 12. One was in a daycare. So we come in, we build the system. Some of the systems were built with students. Some of the systems we just come in, some that we build with teachers. It took us dozens of trials and lots of money to perfect the system, but we've now come up with one that we like, and we're working with a lot of wholesalers and people to really bring that cost down. So I guess this probably should have been before I rambled on first. This is what aquaponics is. Aquaponics is the neatest growing method around. You have aquaculture, which is the raising of fish, and you have that fish waste. They're them breathing. 80% of it is just them breathing. And then their fecal matter and their excretion is ammonia, and that ammonia can be broken down quickly and safely by microbes, which then create plant food, and then we can eat those plants. It's a closed loop ecosystem. It's the most incredible gift, and we're just taking advantage and just letting the fish do their thing, survive. And that's why aquaponics is the ultimate growing method. And it will just continue to show results, is because fish can produce ammonia as waste. Us mammals, we didn't evolve to be that efficient, sadly. Our urea, our waste needs to be broken down for a long period of time. And all these pandemics we're facing, 3 of them right now, the rabbit, Ebola, African swine flu, and COVID, are just mammals transferring viruses to each other. They're too closely related. Fish don't have that disadvantage. It's ammonia safely broken down, cold-blooded species broken down into plant food, and the plants purify the water back for the fish. Incredible, incredible process. So yeah, you have the fish in a continuous loop. You can see in this diagram, taking nutrients from fish waste. People think it's fish waste. We're actually taking bacteria waste and using that as plant growth, and then we can benefit from those plants. Here's a little microsystem we have and why aquaponics is neat. I've been at the Lethbridge College. That's where I learned the most about my aquaponics background, but the scientific studies just keep showing results. 90% less soil use than soil-based agriculture. I do a garden at our acreage in southern Alberta, and it just, every year it's so much work, and I just get devastated by our weather. We get hail, we get these terrible windstorms, and it's just like you get pests. And then indoor greenhouse growing is just such a breeze. Aquaponics is organic. There's no fertilizers, there's no pesticides, and all those negative things that we're starting to find out that are coming from those. They don't, and positives too. Aquaponics has many negatives in the sense that you can't use those tools, but there's that. And here's some other things. The plants grow faster when the systems are working well. It is a difficult method compared to soil and hydroponics, but it has these advantages. And I'm not sure where you guys are located, but southern Alberta, Calgary to the border is going to be, and I've watched it in 4 years, it's going to be the greenhouse capital of Canada. And we've got the sun, we've got very mild winters. We have Chinooks, which are really neat, these warm winds that roll in the winter. So we have that advantage. All these neat things. Here's our program. This is one school. They would do a little bit of lettuce cuttings and herb cuttings every week, and they do a stir fry. This was at an outreach school where the students were largely from the Piikani and Blood Indian Reservation. Very, very, very challenged students as far as economic background. One student who ran the system there he told us that he had eaten watermelon and 1 can of Pepsi in 2 days. So this was a neat program for them to do the stir fries in the schools. So you're not only getting these vegetables, but you can do the protein. A few schools I have do raise tilapia and then butcher the tilapia themselves. It's a little problematic in schools. Kids get attached to fish. Those things come up. The fish can be pets, and they can be pets for years. So tilapia can be pets, but they can be food. And some schools have decided to go that way and to show the students that you can raise that protein as well. But things come up with that. As clean as the fish are, they're organically raised, they're efficient. You know, kids get attached. It gets a little dicey. Even teachers, it gets a little. But the vegetables are a nice thing. The herbs. So healthy eating, cooking. It works well with cooking. We have a few culinary arts teachers that run programs. The little system I've created doesn't pump out a huge amount of food in a school, but it does. You could build them bigger, and that's what I'm hoping greenhouses do. But this thing will produce enough for one class for eating, vegetables once a week, picking out herbs and that kind of thing. But the whole goal is eventually this would evolve into greenhouses, we have a greenhouse design 30 by 55 feet, which would produce about 800 plants at a time and hopefully pay for itself. So hands-on learning, there is so many lessons. It's life learning. These little microsystems give you the kind of the basics of plants. And there's just things that you can learn on and on. It's great entertainment. Growing food in school. Here's a little girl with lettuce. Kids love seeing. You can see there's a picture of tomatoes up there. They should have been cut back, but kids just love seeing plants get out of control and too big. They think that's super cool. And then they just end up, being less efficient than they should. But it's neat for them to learn that and to see that themselves. Kids really like just seeing plants get big. So these lettuce probably should have been picked weeks earlier, but it's small consequences for them to learn to. And these lettuce, this was still edible and very good. Tomatoes work very well in the systems. Strawberries, I have pictures of strawberries here. They actually don't work that great in this particular system that we've came up with. Basil is better in aquaponics than soil. It is incredible in this system. Swiss chard is, if you like Swiss chard, it does well in the system. Tomatoes do well, peppers do well. And then some plants do very poorly in this system, and they're meant for soil, and they're just meant for, or hydroponics will do better with them. Here's fish that we've used about 200 different kinds of species of fish in our program. We have 80 tanks. Kids get to choose the fish they want to raise, but we've done many, many different fish in systems. Koi are a really great system for great fish for schools. They're ornamental, they're pretty, they're peaceful. The kids can sell them at the end of the year. They can do a little bit of business that way and learn, okay, I put this much food in, this was our input. And then the most expensive koi that we've had in our program sold was $110. That was an 8-month-old koi. So you can make a little money with the koi that way. We bring the koi directly in from Singapore. And a neat thing too is one of the people we've sold the koi to is now breeding koi in Calgary in his pond. Tilapia are a nice fish, catfish. We haven't done prawns yet. That was on this page. That's something we want to try. They're a little problematic. They fight and stuff, but that could be a kind of a neat thing for kids. There's endless options. Here's kind of some growing lessons. Principle here. These systems work really tremendously well with principals. With a little side thing, they can have a positive thing to do with their students. And it's very low amount of time to maintenance the system. Some high school kids here in Lumbrick with a system. The science of the system, here's your nitrogen cycle, fish creating waste, bacteria breaking it down. And there's different lessons. The manual we have has curricular ties for each grade level. And there's English, math, physics, chemistry, biology, nutrition. There's endless things you can grab from these little systems. And it's the fish that draw the kids in. And they just love living things in their schools. But it's once you draw them in, there's lessons you can take from that and just score on those. Here's some koi. This is Phil from the Philippines, this big yellow guy. He just grew freakishly large compared to other koi. You can see these guys were his peers, possibly his siblings from Singapore, possibly not. Sorry, from the Philippines. This group was in the Philippines. Phil was about 5 times larger than his peers. We don't know why, but Phil was really special. We sold him to a pond owner in Lethbridge, and then that was nice for that pond owner. But then he sent a message 2 weeks later that his dog grabbed Phil. His Labrador grabbed Phil and gently just took him and put him by the door. So Phil didn't make it in the pond. But that's the reality for some pond fish. Poor Phil. You got some Swiss chard. When I built this, I did it purely for the science, and I like the production, the environmental aspects of it. I did not predict that how much of a community tool these would be in schools. And then what was really interesting is just how much of a mental health tool they are in schools. There's certain kids use them to reset. There's certain kids, they use positive, negative reinforcement with them. I guess not negative, positive reinforcement with feeding the fish. They work really well in elementary schools that way. And I did not see all those community things, naming the fish. The kids get attached to them. The teachers get attached to them. Teachers have built little, like living room chairs around them where they do their meetings. It's just a peaceful thing in schools. It's a very slow, nice form of entertainment with water moving, with fish, something alive, with plants growing. There's that. How am I doing for time, by the way? I ramble, I go on a lot. How am I doing for time there? Sorry, Wanda.
I'll have to shrink the screen.
Am I doing okay for time? Oh, okay. It's 4:40. I'm doing okay, I think.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
Sorry. So yeah, we've had success with this program. It's the biggest. We've grown from not knowing if it would work in schools to 46 schools now, and we're just in a couple of weeks we're starting to put them in senior homes. We've done a couple of universities, private residents, and eventually in a month or so we've got one going in a library. So we just keep growing with it and keep making this this program easier and more fun and just as cheap as we can as far as the costs go. We've worked really hard with wholesalers. We build our own fish tanks in-house now with Canadian glass. So we keep doing what works, and what doesn't work, we throw it away and try to invent the next thing. So we've had people reach out from Sweden. We've had people reach out from Mexico and try to implement these programs in their schools. So it's been just a tremendously fun project so far, and we're just getting to a point where things aren't as busy. We can just enjoy it ourselves now too. So yeah, so that's everything. Do you guys have any questions about the program or the rollout, anything like that? Any questions, let me know.
So I forgot to say, as a a host that anybody that has questions, put them into the chat and we'll go through.
Okay.
So actually, it looks like mainly it was just rest in peace, Phil. But my question.
That story too, that was 11 koi that dog pulled out, and none of them he pulled them out gently like a lab, went into the pond, put them all by the back door. And we did get that guy replacement koi too. And he's kind of built his name's Kevin. He's from North Lethbridge. He's built a little fence around his koi pond in his backyard. So yeah, we should get that koi pond picture.
I have a question that I posted. So how do schools in other parts of Alberta access your expertise and your equipment?
So usually a school will contact us. We haven't actually done any advertising or reaching out yet. We've just had schools kind of bump into each other and then contact us. We'll come, we build the system with them. We haven't gotten to a point where, I don't know if we'll ever get to a point where this particular system, even with a video that a school could build itself, maybe. Aquaponics isn't a very difficult thing to build. So this particular system, like the plans, we're going to have videos on YouTube where this is where we got the parts, this is how you build it. It's just that I don't know if teachers it's just been easier for teachers to pay us to come and do it. You know what I mean? Like they're just so busy themselves. But if you look at the system, this is actually an older style system. Maybe I can get you a picture to our newer style ones. But this is with this grant. You know, it's a very simple idea. This is a 55-gallon tank. Our new tanks are 120 gallons, so twice as big. They now fit in that stand perfectly. But all it is a fish tank and then another fish tank above, a grow bed, and water being pumped up into that grow bed and then water falling back down. It's not a complicated thing to do. And there's lots of proven designs online. The problem with aquaponics was teachers are too busy to build them. They want them built. And then it's the programming. It was just, it's a growing method that's a lot newer than hydroponics and of course soil. So the resources just were so messy. And that's what we did, was break it into lessons and use tools, water testing kits. Just the rollout made it as easy as possible for schools, and the equipment being the best, the right equipment.
And another question is, how long does it take to establish your bacterial populations?
So when we first started in year 1, this is year 4, we thought it was a good idea to do sterile tanks. We thought that was the idea at the time. The idea was, here's your tank with no bacteria, with just water from the tap. We'll put in one fish and we'll wait for the cycle. And it just took forever to have that bacteria naturally go in the system. So now we put the filters that come with the system. We put them on our tanks and they run for months. And then we come with cycled tanks. So the tanks will come pretty ready to go. That being said, things can take a while to balance, 2 weeks to 2 months for new systems. And then they continually establish bacteria and colonize bacteria within their systems for 18 to 24 months. So they kind of improve on them on their own as they get older. 2 weeks to 2 months would be the average for new systems now, for bacteria before you're ready to not have huge problems.
Another question is, do you have lighting systems for indoor aquaponics? Yes,
we do. So we use LED lights. I'm at a school called Stanley Jones in Calgary at the moment. So we use LED lights and 2 LED lights, that's it. And there you got some soil plants. They've just started. This system's 1 day old. There's the filter. There's the tank. So the LED lights, even in the last 4 years, have tremendously improved. And that technology out of Japan originally is going to make greenhouse growing the next big thing, the next big industry. Without LED lights, greenhouse growing is expensive. There's just more problems. The LED lights are just incredible. The price, we have hundreds of LED box lights in the program, and we've had almost no issues. They're cheap, they're energy efficient, they last forever. So it's just LED technology is just a gift. It's an incredible gift.
And another question, we have an existing program, a system. Can you come in to consult, and what are your fees?
It would depend on a lot of things. Location, yeah, consulting would be something I could do. I could even share with you the manual. The fees are all pretty reasonable. I think we work for like around, I think it was like $30 an hour, $25 an hour, but it would kind of depend on where it is. Where are they located? There would be a lot of variables, what they need. But if they want
Calgary, they're in Calgary.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, if you guys can, and honestly, one of the things too is we were hoping, and it hasn't been as successful as we thought it. I thought it was going to be. My wife and I, is we built originally a Facebook page, and that didn't. A lot of teachers weren't really comfortable with some weren't being Facebook. So we tried to Slack social media page, and we found it is actually just best for me to go place to place. We thought the teachers would build on themselves. And that just I haven't tapped into that yet. It's just the profession of teaching is just so busy. Yeah, if you want to reach out, we can help you guys out, of course.
So,
the teaching part is the fun part. I like that part. It's the building, the supplies, the financing, the business license, the working with wholesalers. That's the painful part. For me to come in that's the fun part for me.
And we have a gal here from near the California desert near Joshua Tree. Welcome. And she's wondering if you have any information to share. So Holly needs to find your Facebook page. You're saying that you do have it on?
Yeah, we got a Facebook page, Aquaponics World. We've got aquaponics world.ca as well.
Awesome.
Aquaponics Facebook, yeah.
Maybe what we'll do is we'll go to Dustin, and then if the Q&A later, if somebody wants to direct a question back to Michael or to Dustin, then they could just put that into the chat. So over to Dustin, and Dustin, you'll introduce yourself, please.
Absolutely. I'm going to hit share, and I'm going to see if did that just jump it over?
Nope.
Should I end my thing?
Yeah, I guess so. I don't think you have to do anything. I think everybody sees this little slide that says super simple aquaponics.
Yep,
Thumbs up if you can see it. Perfect. So Michael did a really good job of going over exactly kind of what aquaponics is, all of the benefits of it. So I'm not going to kind of labor on those points. Instead, I'm going to share with you some of the stuff that I've done and what has worked for me, and what I'm calling a super simple aquaponic system, realizing that there's lots of different ways of doing this and there's no right. Well, the technique that you use will depend on your particular. My background is education. I worked with Edmonton Public for about 10 years, and in that time, I think my internet jumped out for a second. In that time, working for Edmonton Public, I built an aquaponics system with some students. We learned a lot of valuable lessons, what to do, what not to do. And I've built some subsequent systems and have built my own little system at home here with the goal of creating something that would be super simple, fairly easy to put together, fairly cost effective, and not something that is going to accidentally flood the room, which is something I have done. So this is a bit of a where I'm kind of at now after having tackled some of this for a while. I also work for an organization called Sustainable Food Edmonton, and so I kind of have my SFE cap on. We help schools in and around the Edmonton area work on urban agriculture projects. So it's everything from growing some basil in a pot on the window to digging up the football field. Nobody's taken me up on that offer, but we'll get there. And we have a few different programs, and the program that I work on is Urban Ag High, where we specifically play around with at the high school level. Michael already did a really fantastic job of talking about aquaponics, so I'm not going to get into that too much. But one way that I kind of like to look at this is I have a background in something called permaculture, and there's a strategy in permaculture, a design tactic in permaculture called a needs and yields analysis. And the idea is that, like, in a system, all the different elements of that system have particular needs to make it function and offer certain yields. And if you have a system or a garden or a fish tank that it has certain needs that aren't being fulfilled, like regular feeding, cleaning, then you have to actually go and physically do that. Or if you have a yield that doesn't have a use, like fish waste, then that can also become a problem down the road, and then you have to kind of clean it up. And then hydroponics is kind of a flip side here, where we have plants where we're continuously adding nutrients to make sure that they are able to pull from that. It's a soilless kind of system. What I'm getting at here is that if you combine these two systems, and Michael already did a fantastic job of kind of explaining this, that you actually, some of these things sort of cancel out, and you end up with a system that is, less work and offers sort of less problems to kind of deal with. And so it really kind of like some sort of ecological math equation, you end up with some really nice fits and some crossing out of some of the work and some of the problems. And, ideally you have this system that, you is a pleasure to maintain. You're going to be feeding fish, but it's not going to be this, doing these big giant water changes. And hopefully you're going to end up with some fish to maybe eat, maybe enjoy, and some plants to maybe eat, maybe enjoy. And as a teacher, it's been a really fantastic project because it's so cross-curricular, right? So we've got construction here, we've got plant science, we have all of the nitrogen cycle, and so you can fit chemistry, biology, physics, social studies in here. There's really lots of different nice ways to tie this into the program of studies. And it sounds like Michael has done a lot of work around mapping some of those different curricular links at various levels, which is a very handy thing. Here is some tilapia that we had at Jasper Place High School when I was practicing some aquaponics there. And this is our first stab at aquaponics. It's quite an interesting system. We learned a lot while putting it together. It worked. We definitely, but there's a lot of lessons that I think I can draw from there. That's kind of what I want to impart. This is like kids throwing everything in here. We have cucumbers and tomatoes, and I think that's even an orchid there. So we've been kids kind of went crazy, which was kind of part of the fun. Actually, in terms of building this work, like doing a project with students, like I was not an aquaponics. I'm still not an aquaponics expert, but putting this together with kids and figuring it out together with kids, it was maybe one of the most rewarding things that I have done as a teacher. It kind of felt like, I mean, clearly you have, more of a background and just more experience than students. But there's something really nice about like a student asking you a question, you being like, I don't know, but I bet we can find out. Here is our expansion of our aquaponic system. So we tied a bunch of kind of beds together in the bottom with some grow beds on top. We've got some grow lights, and it's obviously not growing plants at the moment. This is kind of the initial setup. This was in a culinary arts classroom, and so the goal here was we worked a lot with the culinary students, and then we were able to pull some plants and occasionally some fish out of that system as well. What we did was overly complicated. And so all of this here, it was great. It was fun. We learned a lot, but it was very, it was overly complicated. And so I kind of set myself a goal of being like, okay, how do I create something that's really simple to execute, that's fairly foolproof? And what I mean by foolproof, meaning like if the power goes out, it's not going to just like flood. Affordable, modular, where maybe you can start with a small piece and you can add on to it if you want, and something that's going to be relatively easy to manage. Is this the most like bulletproof system? Is it the best system? Once again, it depends on your goals. And so there's quite a few different ways of doing this. All of them have advantages and disadvantages, but going at it with these kind of 5 goals, this is the very simple system that I kind of came up with, and have done a little bit with students. The basic setup, and Michael did also a great job of this. We've got a grow bed sort of sitting over a fish tank, and we have water moving from that fish tank into that grow bed, where you have all of this medium in the grow bed where you get this bacteria living that are breaking down and converting that ammonia into forms of nitrogen that the plants can take up. And then you've got this cleaner water heading back to the fish tank. How you do that, right? This is the basic kind of idea, but how you do that is where all the nuance and stuff can kind of come in. Generally, this is kind of what has worked for me for a grow bed. I like a grow bed that's waterproof. I like a grow bed that's food safe. I tend to use deeper grow beds. 6 to 8 inches deep works fairly well for me. You can really push your grow bed volume. There's a really great book called Practical Aquaponics, and they have as many as, like, by volume, like 3 times as much grow bed as fish tank. But for the purpose of like creating a system that isn't going to flood, I like to keep my my fish tank or my grow bed volume quite a bit smaller than the fish tank, so that if you have a leak or something like that, you don't have all of that water flushing into the fish tank and then overflowing the whole system. So it's not that you can't push more grow bed to fish tank ratio. It's just like if it goes bad, it goes extra bad. This could be anything from totes. You can get really creative. You can go to place aquaponics or hydroponic stores and buy all kinds of food grade totes. You can go to a place like the Grocery People and you can buy food grade containers. So you can really get creative with what you want to do. This one on the bottom here, by the way, is like a $6,000 porcelain, I don't know, bowl, sink, whatever. I mean, if you want to put that in your system and turn that into your grow bed, by all means. The whole point is you can get creative. Old wash basin with a hole cut in the bottom. This here is a wooden box that I made for myself. This thing's still running. It's downstairs and doing its thing. It's been going for years. And I made it out of wood, and I lined it with some coroplast and a pond liner. It's held up remarkably well. Filling it, I really like Hydroton Medium. This is an expanded clay pellet. It's sometimes called Leica. I don't know if that's like a proprietary name, but the thing about it is it's really light. It actually floats on water until it's been sitting in water for a while. It's very porous, so you get lots of beneficial bacteria growing in it. And that's going to end up being your biofilter that is going to convert that fish waste into usable forms of nitrogen. And depending on your system, you could use something like a plant net pot like this, or you can plant directly into that Hydroton. Michael's already kind of talked about the cycling here. And so the fish are emitting that ammonia. The bacteria are gonna, they're just in the environment, but you can also seed that by, putting in some filter medium from an already cycled tank, and that the bacteria is going to convert that ammonia into nitrite, which is also toxic. But eventually you're going to get a second bacteria that gets established and is going to convert it into nitrate, which your plants can take up. And in a regular system, that builds up and you start to get algae growth. But in an aquaponic system, when the plants start pulling that out, algae doesn't become that problem. And so you can actually cycle that water for a really long time. And so while it looks like you use a lot of water in an aquaponic system, that water is just continuously being used over and over again, which actually makes it a very efficient a very efficient way to use water. in agriculture. The two kinds of systems that I've been playing with the most are like a flood and drain system where the grow bed fills up and then it flushes and then it fills up and then it flushes. And so what you're getting is water and nutrients followed by lots of oxygen, water and nutrients followed by lots of oxygen. But what you're also getting is the water levels going up and down all of the time in the two beds, which isn't that big of a deal, provided that you know, your fish tank isn't ever going dry. And then the second kind of model, well, that's our first one here. The second kind of option, and this is the one that I've been using mostly now, is just to kind of have like a wicking type system where we have water continuously moving up into the grow bed and then cycling back down to the fish tank. And so in a system like this, I've been letting the pump run 24/7, and I just let that water sit at a constant height. And the Leica or the Hydroton actually does a pretty good job of wicking up that water fairly high. And then so you end up with a situation where the plant roots, I might have to go like this, the plant roots are up in this kind of column of Hydroton here. The water level hangs out here and it wicks up where the plants can access it. But because they're never submerged in water like this system here, you still get that kind of nice mix of oxygen and moisture, but and nutrient rich, the nutrients from the fish. Yeah, I mean, these once again, these are the two options that I've played around with the most, but there's many different styles of doing this. In something that floods and drains, you need to either have your pump turn on and off on a regular interval, so using something like a timer, or you could have a pump run continuously, but then you're fiddling with something like putting in putting in something like a bell siphon in order to
black, brown.
I'm gonna maybe mute here. Oops. Okay. And so you'd have to find a way to get those plants to get that water to move up and down regularly. The wicking is kind of nice in that you have just a constant level of water in your bed, in your grow bed, and you don't have to worry about turning your pump on or off. You don't have to worry about playing around with timers or bell siphons or anything like that. I could send a little parts list out here, but I went and I had the goal of putting together a simple little system. This was all of the parts I fit. So this was put together. This doesn't include the fish tank itself, but I think I was able to source most of this stuff for about $100. Duels. And this is kind of the system that I've been playing around with. So this is my super simple aquaponics where I've got a fish tank on the bottom. I've got a grow bed on the top, which is about 1/3 of the volume of the fish tank. I've got a single hole in the center of that grow bed where I can both pump water up into the grow bed, but also through the holes in the side of this pipe allow for the water to drain back down. And that the height of those holes maintains the height of the water. And if I have this pump down here running continuously, up here it's always sending nutrient-rich water to the top, allowing it to flow back down after it's been exposed to this beneficial bacteria, and then the water can just wick its way up through that hydroton into this zone that the plant roots are in. Here's kind of a bit of a closer look at that, but I think in the interest of time, well, I guess I can go a little bit longer, but I want to leave some time for questions. So water coming up through the bottom, being deposited into the grow bed, and then in this case here, just heading back down through these spill holes, down through the same opening that allowed for me to plumb the water back up. So one hole does the whole thing. This was a very sort of simple demo system that I'd set up. It's a little too small for really practical purposes, but I just wanted to something I could show up to a class with and show people. But here's my bulkhead. That's to bring water up into the grow bed. We're in the grow bed right now. I've got a couple holes here for the water to return back down to the fish, and I've plumbed it so that we've got water flowing up through the black pipe, and then down through those holes again, and then back into the fish tank. Like I said, this is not really practical for keeping fish in. It's not a very like fish friendly environment, but in terms of demonstrating what the plumbing looks like. In this top grow bed, you would then fill that with Hydroton, or if you wanted, you could put in some net pots, fill those net pots with Hydroton. But the main thing is that the lower third of these net pots is actually sitting in that Hydroton, and then which is wicking that water up and making it accessible to the plant. So this is the system at home. It's obviously like that I have at my house here. Basil, no kidding, loves aquaponics. Just kind of goes to town. Also really good return on your investment, because we were talking about this before the session started, but a handful of basil at the store is quite expensive. So it's kind of nice to be able to have a system like this that you can just go and basically is a little basil producing machine. And I think I'm going to end it there. I mean, I've got all kinds of little stuff on lights and plants and stuff, but I want to leave time for questions. I will say, if you are interested in this presentation, we have been filming it, but we also have an email list. And so we've been mostly focusing on teachers in and around the Edmonton area. But if you happen to be in Calgary or Vermilion or in Joshua Tree, and you want to connect with a group of teachers who are all interested in urban agriculture, feel free to sign up to that. We also, a couple times a year, have some grants. They're $500 seed grants. They are, it's not a ton of money, but is often helpful, especially considering that funding is at oftentimes the limiting factor. This, by the way, doesn't have to be specifically for aquaponics. It's for any urban agriculture activity out there. And I think I'm going to just end there, because I want to make sure that we have 15-20 minutes to just answer questions. So I'm going to hit stop share and jump back over here.
So there's a comment here about future video YouTube series funded by University of Lethbridge that Michael's talking about. And
yeah, sorry about that. I was answering that question. I didn't know. I didn't wait. Yeah, so we're going to try to put the how to build the system or this particular system, and then how to run it, the manual and the operational side of things. We have a manual, and then we have YouTube videos. Most of them aren't ours. But we're going to convert them all to our own videos. It's on hold. Like Dustin found out, there's things that work and don't work. And
yeah. And I'm not kidding when I say that I've caused some pretty good floods.
Yeah, and you know what? We have too. And it doesn't take that much water to make things look really, really ugly.
Our very first system was on a rooftop greenhouse.
Oh,
great spot for it, but stairs turn into waterfalls if you're not careful.
Oh no.
Yeah.
And so I had the system set up. I was cycling it, and I was feeling nervous about, it cycled all week. I was feeling nervous about leaving it for the weekend. So it was Friday afternoon. I unplugged it and I went home, and 2 hours later, I got a very panicky phone call. And what had happened is everything was working fine, but when I unplugged it, what happened is it started back siphoning. And so simple little things like, put a little hole someplace so that, you can't things can go one way, but not the other way, right? Like when I say, what happens to your system when it loses power? What happens to your system when it loses power? Because if you're not careful, it ends up all over the floor.
Yeah.
And so this is also from you, Mike, the Stanley Jones School system in Calgary?
Oh, well, there's a couple systems here in Calgary. There is, if the Calgary teacher, it sounds like she has one or he has one in their school already, then it's just simply getting a hold of either Dustin or I. And But if they ever want to see one, I don't know what things are like during the COVID times in schools, but if they ever wanted to go to AJ Islamic or to one of the other systems in the area, Stanley Jones, that might be something they could see, and just or teacher testimonials kind of thing. Yeah.
So Scott makes a comment, nice to mess around, or it's a nice prototype and it's messing around, creatively solving assembly/design challenges. And it's great to push the students to think laterally. I wonder, do any of the kids ever do science projects, or sorry, not science fair projects on aquaponics? They must. Dustin, could you please post the QR code again?
Yeah, I will do that.
And Scott's wondering, Mike, where is your Edmonton system?
The Edmonton system is at it's a doctor who does research at the U of A. It's at his private residence because they had troubles during the early COVID days doing research on his system. So it's at a private residence. I'm not sure how I could ask him if he would be okay with showing that. But yeah, I'm not sure. It's not in a public building. So and that particular system wasn't for a school. That it's for a university research. So that was cannabis growing. So I don't know if that is applicable for schools, but same.
Scott had a question about mint. I've grown mint in like a Kratky system, which is hydroponics. And it did really well. I would imagine it would do very well in an aquaponic situation. Mint is one of those like monster plants. I think I remember reading somewhere that the plant can get so vigorous that it sometimes will mess with your plumbing, but I don't have any experience with that. I don't know, Mike, if you have messed around with mint.
Yeah, we've grown mint in a few schools. There's so many varieties of each kind of plant. Every seed company out there, every major seed company, we work with West Coast Seeds a lot. We just like the seeds. It's a nice company to work with. But every seed company in the world will give huge donations to research centers. So our research center in Lethbridge has lists. That being said, I don't know if Dustin has noticed this too. He probably has. Each system and your systems will have different things they're good at. So and the consequences are small. We give seeds that we know work to schools as basic kits, but having fun and finding out what works and what doesn't work is half the fun of it. We've had schools try everything, from flowers to tropical plants to watermelons, which didn't work, but it's all little consequences. Seeds are 2 cents. If it doesn't work, you germinate more and you have a system where that's half the fun kids have with it, is just seeing what works and what doesn't. Hey, Dustin, when you
Oh yeah, no, 100%, right? I mean, you saw that like really messy, overgrown grow bed there is tomatoes and cucumbers and orchids, and it's like I swear kids would be like, "Can we plant this in there?" It's like, let's try.
Yeah, perfect.
I had a couple of questions. I just think it's easier to talk sometimes. Sure. I was wondering about I have a small aquaponics system and I'm having to add iron to my system just to balance out some nutrients. I have not tried a flowering plant yet. Do you find with flowering plants, do you have to add any other nutrients?
It depends on a lot of factors. It depends on the size of your system. It depends on the age of your system. For me, the less things we add in the schools, the better. And just in general, it's just less work. So it's kind of what your particular system's good at adding. So we do, everybody has to add with our particular system, chelated iron. We just find without chelated iron that iron deficiencies show up. But we do have Plant Prod. There's a company out of, it's an Alberta company. They sell it in Calgary and Edmonton. It's called Plant Prod. It's a micronutrient mix. That being said, I very, very rarely add it. Flowering plants on a newer system, it might be a little problematic, but as systems get older and you find that balance between what your system can pump out, every system is different. You'll find those flowering plants. Certain flowering plants at certain times will have issues, and at other times, when your system is working well, it can work. Tomatoes, peppers, strawberries. We grow actually just ornamental flowers in systems. You know, so yeah. Is that what you guys have found, Dustin?
Yeah, we've mostly played around, like stuck with our like leafy greens.
Yes.
Generally they seem to do the best. It wasn't to say that we probably couldn't have had more success with the flowering plants, but it sort of, our systems just you know would pump out leafy green things like nothing. So that's kind of what we focused on. I think the one thing that has become clear, and it makes a lot of sense, is that like the larger your system is, like volume wise, like the more stable it tends to be. That's not to say that you can't have like really stable smaller systems, but if you think about like temperature swings or pH swings, or just, you know, once you kind of get that once that system becomes established, it actually becomes fairly hard to knock it out of balance. Like that really big, that system we had going at Jasper Place High School, you know, it took, you know, a month and a half to kind of really, you know, get established where we felt pretty confident that there wasn't any swings anymore. And then, you know, for years after that, it was just like remarkably stable. Like you could just, you could check it. We check it periodically, and it never changed. Whereas like the little small one that I have here, you know, it's pretty good. It's pretty stable. It's still pretty hard to knock off, but you know, just it doesn't have as much volume, and so it can there's a little bit more flux there.
Do you mind if I share something here really quick? Just my screen again is in the manual we have. I did a difficulty rating of each plant in this particular system. Can you guys see that?
Yep.
So with this particular system and where the schools were successful, 0 being the easiest, 10 being the most difficult, and each plant kind of came with, you know, what you could cook it and what you could do with it. And Swiss chard is in our particular system. And just like with what Dustin said, basil likes aquaponic systems more than it likes soil. It just loves aquaponic Swiss chard. And then you can move to plants that are we rated more difficult. And then some that are, you know, strawberries, we just have difficulties with. Watermelon, the kids tried, it was just terrible. Tomatoes, a little difficult, but each plant has its difficulty ratings in this particular system. But like Dustin said, the larger the system, the easier. Your percentile differences, your mistakes are a lot smaller. Yeah. And your swings, your nutrient uptake, your pH, everything is easier in a larger system, in an aquatic system. That's that story. Thank you.
Another question I had was about the bed. So my bed at home, I'm just using, it's a small system. I only have a 20-gallon tank. So I have I'm using Danios and I don't know, like a guppy, I think. We have guppies, I think we're using in our fish, but we're just literally putting the plants right in, and the seeds right into the Hydroton. I noticed that a few other systems you guys had the plank on it, the scrap board, and you mentioned, I saw that as one of the things, and in yours, Dustin, like what is the advantage you think of having the board on top as opposed to just being straight in the Hydroton?
Oh, hold on, let me maybe jump back to slides here, just to confirm that so you're talking about
in your material list.
Oh yeah, no, I was just like in this, so in this case here, I mean, I was thinking like, you know, it could be as simple as, you know, putting a couple boards across your fish tank here and having your grow bed sit on top of it, right? So just as kind of a support, this system here that I built, like I custom built this to be able to fit and like sit on. It's a terrible photo because it doesn't show you the fish tank below, but I built it so that it actually like has a lip on it and it sits like in that lip on the fish tank below it. But I'm not, I was just thinking like in terms of something that's really kind of simple. I mean, to have a couple flat boards on end is a really simple way to set it up here. Downsides is you do want to be considerate of how much weight you're putting on that system below it. So you want to be able to dissipate that weight. Something like Mike's system where it is, to me it looked like it was almost like a shelving unit where there's no weight from the grow bed on the fish tank below is probably more ideal. But is that what you're getting at, Scott?
More so like right in the actual bed itself. So like in your parts list, slide 26 there, you mentioned, I think it says scrap board for the, oh, okay, no, I did read that wrong. Okay,
Yeah,
I did read that wrong. Yeah. So I guess what it mostly was about is right in the actual bed itself. Like sometimes you can have some people use foam or whatever it is, and they cut holes in it and set the plants in.
Oh yeah. So there's like,
yeah.
If this is going up and down, like you've got kind of like a flood and drain system. This one here I'm calling a wicking system. I'm sure that there's probably a more scientific name for that, where I'm just letting it wick up to the roots. You have like the nutrient film system where I don't know if you've seen like ones where it's like 4-inch PVC pipe with the little net pots in it. And so the water as it heads down is actually just clinging to the side of the pipe, and it's just delivering kind of a continuous like little trickle or stream of water to the roots. And then there's like the submerged roots where you're talking about like a styrofoam on top. There's no like hydroton or anything in the bed. It's floating on top and the roots are actually submerged. And I've seen systems like that. I've played around with it a little bit, but I found sort of two things. One is the roots can't just be continuously submerged or they drown. They really need to be a high oxygen environment. And so in my experience, and maybe Mike can add more to this, but if you want to do a system like that, you need quite a bit of aeration. The other thing that I found is that you would unless you sort of pre-filtered the fish waste, on its way up to the grow bed with these submerged roots, so pulling out any kind of solid material, that you'd get like particulate matter building up on the roots, and then it becomes anaerobic, and then the plants kind of, they're not getting that access to oxygen. And so that's been my experience. And so I found that growing in the Hydroton is easier, just for starters. The Hydroton is like a really great environment for those bacteria. And then it's just a matter of being like, okay, how do we get the right proportion of, nutrient rich moisture and oxygen to these roots? And you can't have like one or the other, hence like the flood and drain system, or, a situation like this where the water is just kind of wicking up, but the roots themselves aren't actually submerged. I just have found that that's easier. Now, it might be less productive than some of those floating raft systems. But I think it's like a little easier to kind of execute in my experience. And so my goal was to create that easy to execute aquaponic system. Side note, I do have to leave right at 5:30 because I'm teaching a 3-hour B class starting at 6. I need to get ready. But yeah, I'll hit stop share here.
Did you see this last question from Scott? Do you put the hydro in the horizontal pipe stick wick system?
Just in the net pots I've done. Yeah.
Sorry. So I think we're at the end of our, well, we really need to let Dustin go to get us ready for his course.
You can keep going as long as you want. I need to eat a little bit and then sit back down at the computer for another 3 hours.
And I think that the two of you with Urban Ag High and with Aquaponics world.ca, everybody can stay in touch with you. And I really think people talking amongst themselves could just say they were recorded and you can get hold of them. And so everybody's got options. And thank you so much, you guys. It's so nice of you to share your knowledge and be there to answer questions. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, great meeting you, Mike.
Yeah, you as well, Dustin. Thanks.
Okay, good luck in your course, Dustin.
Yeah, thank you very much. Bye.